Howdy, it's me again, and I'm back with Gunnar Energy Services, pulling back the curtain. My name is Dan Eby, and I'm your favorite sawed-off well control guy. We're going to pull back the curtain some more, talking about access, and I promise you, eventually, there's a lot of people out there are not going to like how some of this may end. There's lots of video on the web showing blowouts, tons of it. I want you to know, first, we are not here to tell blowout stories. What we're here to do is pass on information to people who have to work on these things that normally don't work on them so they can make better decisions. I do some expert witness work, and a lot of times I hear, why did you do that? And I hear, well, that's what they wanted to do. They, meaning the well control company. I want to tell you, they don't always have your best interest at heart. They have their best interest at heart. And they don't always have the experience you have. And just because this is your first blowout to work on doesn't mean you can't make good decisions about it. So here we go. What have we done so far? We talked about the assessments. The assessment's been made and the well control plan has been devised. Last time we talked about rigging up firefighting equipment. So all that's done, we got a bunch of water out there, we got a bunch of firefighting equipment out there, and well, we can still start throwing water if it's a fire, or if it's not a fire, even just to keep the flow wet. And there's lots and lots and lots of equipment arriving. Guess what? You're not gonna need some of it. Maybe some of the well control company's equipment, because they're gonna send pretty much everything they got. And the reason they do that is they get paid for it. Why did they get away with that? Everybody seems to think, a lot of the times, the insurance company's paying for it. Or the operator is, I don't know why they needed that, but they said they did. Well, guess what? They get paid for it. And it's possible somewhere, some manager is getting a bonus. So be careful about that. Last time we mentioned that we were going to talk about digging. But before we can do any kind of digging around the well, we got to get all the equipment away from the well so we can actually do that. When there's a fire, there's lots of debris. If there's a rig, especially if there's a rig or a workover rig, or there can be a minor amount of debris if it's some sort of production scenario. But how do you get this stuff off of there? Well, you cut it off of there, or you pull it off of there, or you rip it off of there somehow with a dozer or an 80 wagon or whatever it is. But this is the brute force part of the intervention. How do you cut this debris off? Well, you can cut it with a cutting torch. That's easy. That's pretty much a known given. Or you can get shears to go on the end of a track hoe. That's really good stuff. It's really fast too. When there's no fire, sometimes we can just rig down equipment, whether that's frac equipment or flowback equipment or production equipment, or if it's a rig, sometimes we have to skid the rig. That's a pretty big undertaking. And it's not nearly as fast as rigging stuff down, but it has to be done. Now this rig skidding deal and all this equipment moving when you just rig down may or may not need firefighting water to do that. Okay, we're getting stuff off location. What do we do with it? Well, we got to have some place to store it. We can use a nearby location, or we can set it on the side of the location road, not a public road by any means, obviously, but on the side of the location road, somewhere out of the way where we still have good access to the well and the equipment's out of our way. If it's offshore, we'll be picking it off of there, with the crane barge or something like that. We may need a whole separate barge just to store the debris that comes, or equipment that comes off of the well. When we're moving stuff off, you gotta remember, sometimes these things get put in quarantine, especially nowadays. That's for legal reasons. People want to see what happened, what went wrong, that type of stuff, and the insurance and that type of stuff. So a lot of times there's some sort of forensics. What happened, what was the story, what failed, that type of stuff has got to be done. So we got to put stuff in quarantine. Okay, well, that's the really super short version of getting stuff off of there. We got firefighter rigged up, fire water rigged up, maybe need it, maybe not. We got to clear the location. Why do we do that? And so we can get in there and work on the well and make sure we have good access all the way around the wellhead. One thing we remember, we talked about in the assessment phase, sometimes if we do that and we start pulling things away from the well, we see something different. Maybe the flow's coming from a different point or something like that. So we can also make assessments in this phase when we're getting equipment and debris off of the well. Next time, we're going to talk about digging. And almost all big major blowouts, on land anyway, require some sort of digging. So give us a thumbs up there on LinkedIn. And this is Gunnar Energy Services pulling back the curtain, and we'll see you next time.